Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today we will discuss the articles displayed on the screen from the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 6th March 2019. So let us start our discussion. Now in today's newspaper, there are three news articles related to the United States of America's decision of withdrawing the generalized system of preferences. Also on the page number 8, there is an editorial which is related to the likely impact of the generalized system of preferences withdrawal by the US. So this becomes an important part for us from the General Studies paper 3 under the topic Economic Development. Now here you should note that the withdrawal of GSP by the United States of America is a sign of protectionism in world trade. And here you should note that the World Trade Organization strives for free trade across countries, which means that the countries should not discriminate against each other in terms of their trade. And this principle has been envisaged in the most favored nation principle of the WTO. So any step which goes against the principle of free trade which has been proposed by the WTO is seen as a sign of protectionism. So here also this withdrawal of GSP is being seen as a sign of protectionism. And you should note that in the year 2018, in the mains examination, a question was asked related to the impact of protectionism on Indian economy. So the question reads, how would the recent phenomena of protectionism and currency manipulations in world trade affect the macroeconomic stability of India? So similarly, you can expect questions regarding the impact of the United States' withdrawal of the generalized system of preference on Indian economy. Now in the DNS of 9th February 2019, we have learned that what is meant by the GSP, what are the benefits that are accrued under the GSP, and what is the relation of GSP vis-a-vis WTO. So now before understanding the impact of the withdrawal of GSP by the US on India, let us understand what is meant by GSP, what are the benefits that are accrued under GSP, and where does the GSP stands vis-a-vis WTO. So let us first revise this, and after that we will learn about the impact of this withdrawal on Indian economy. So regarding GSP, you should note that the Generalized System of Preference is a US trade program, and it started in the year 1976. Now, this program is designed to promote economic growth in developing countries, and it aims to do so by providing duty-free entry for up to 4,800 products. And these products should be from 129 designated countries or beneficiary countries. So basically, this means that under the GSP program, United States allows certain countries to export their products to United States with zero tariff imposed on them. Now, what are the benefits of this GSP scheme? Now, this GSP scheme provides opportunity to the world's poorest or the developing countries. This is because these poor or developing countries can export to the United States without any tariff being imposed on them. And this can in turn promote economic activity in their countries, and this will help them in growing their economies. However, this program is also beneficial for America itself. This is because it increases the competitiveness in the American market. This is because it reduces the costs of imported inputs which are used by the US companies to manufacture goods. So simply this program benefits the developing and the poorest countries by growing their economies, and it also helps in increasing the competitiveness in the American market. Now after understanding the GSP and the benefits of GSP, let us understand what is the relation between WTO and the Generalized System of Preferences. Now one of the important rule of WTO is that under their normal trade laws, the WTO members must give equal preferences to its trade partners. This means that there should not be any discrimination between the countries in terms of trade. And this trade rule under the WTO is called as the Most Favored Nation Clause. So simply this MFN clause states that there cannot be any discrimination between two countries in terms of their trade, which means that a country cannot impose discriminatory tariff barriers for trade with other countries. So this MFN clause strives for creating equality in terms of trade between countries. However, this allows certain exceptions to this MFN clause. In this sense, the WTO allows its members to give special and differential treatment to developing or poor countries. Now, as this special and differential treatment can only be given to developing countries or poor countries, such a special or differential treatment cannot be given to developed countries. Now, for example, by providing zero tariff on imports, the US under its GSP is providing special treatment to the developing and the poor countries. So this generalized system of preference that is given by the United States to the developing countries is included as an exception to the MFN clause under the WTO rules. So this is an important point and should be kept in mind from your preliminary examination point. Now, after understanding what is GSP and what are the benefits under GSP, let us understand what is the recent decision of United States. So in this line, you should understand that the US intends to terminate the India's designation as a beneficiary of its generalized system of preferences. So here you should note that India has been the biggest beneficiary of this generalized system of preferences regime. And you should note that in the year 2017, if 100 items got duty free access in the United States, or the items which are imported into the US without any duty, 25% of these items were from India. So this shows that India was the biggest beneficiary of this GSP system. And as can be seen in this bar graph, India had the highest benefit of the duty-free exports to the United States as compared to other countries. And the exports stood at around $5.58 billion, which was around 12% of the total goods export of around $45 billion to the US. So 12% of the total exports to the US was under this GSP regime. And also you should note that the US stands at a trade deficit in terms of goods at about $22 billion in 2017, which means that India has a trade surplus vis-a-vis trade with US. So these were some of the benefits that India accrued under the GSP system. Now, after understanding the benefits that India had under this GSP regime, let us look at the possible impacts of this withdrawal of GSP system by the United States of America. So first is that it could impact India's competitiveness in items like raw materials, and especially in the organic chemicals section, which has the highest value under the GSP exports from India. And besides raw materials like the organic chemical sector, intermediary goods like the iron and steel, furniture, aluminium, and electrical machinery exports under the GSP could also be impacted. And they will reduce the competitiveness of the Indian products as compared to other countries. Now, regarding the organic chemicals, which has the highest value under the GSP exports, it stands at $1.4 billion in 2017. So, according to the Commerce Ministry, about 1900 products exported to the US under the GSP may be impacted due to this withdrawal. Now, although it is being said that India has the highest share amongst the GSP imports in US, for example, the total GSP imports into US is around $20.77 billion. And out of these $20 billion, almost 25% of it is being exported from the India. So now, although the export share of India under the GSP is highest, the Indian government has said that there will be limited impact on the exports from India. Now, the government has said that it will have a limited impact on the exports from India. And in this line, the government has clarified that Indian exporters were receiving only duty-free benefits of the tune of only $190 million out of the total GSP exports of $5.6 billion, which means that the duty-free access was available only to the exports worth $190 million. So the government has clarified that the value of exports other than these 190 million exports will not be impacted by this withdrawal of US. Further, it has also been said that India is diversifying its trade partners. And in this line, it has been said that India is diversifying its markets in the Latin American countries, in the African region, etc. So in this case, the government thinks that even if the US withdrawal impacts the exports to the US, Indian exports have already started entering the markets of other global south countries like Latin American and African countries. That is why the overall impact on the Indian exports would be limited. Now, the critics have highlighted that the exports from India could be impacted due to this decision of United States. In this line, it has been highlighted that Indian exporters will be hit if the United States government does not stop the GSP for other competitor countries. Now, for example, if the GSP is withdrawn from a particular product that is exported from India, and if the same GSP is not withdrawn for the other countries, the exporters from those countries will have an edge over the Indian product. So that is why the competitiveness of the Indian exports could be impacted. So in the absence of GSP, the orders which were meant for India or the exports which should have gone to America from India would now go to the other GSP countries because they will have a lower price as compared to the Indian exports. Further, it has been highlighted that this move of the United States will impact the small industries. This is because majority of products that were exported under the GSP were from the small industries or the MSME sector. Further, export bodies in India have said that the small industries would lose their market share in the US if this GSP system is withdrawn. So in this case, they have highlighted that these industries will need a fiscal support to maintain their competitive edge. Now here it is important to note that these changes which have been announced by the US will take at least 60 days to come into effect. This is because this measure of the US will also have to be ratified by the United States Congress. So, in the meantime, India still has got the time for negotiations. Now, one of the steps that India could take is the retaliatory tariff barriers. And in this line, you should note that India had intended to impose higher tariffs on 29 goods imported from the US as retaliation. And this retaliation was against the imposition of heavy tariff on the import of steel and aluminum products in the US. Now, although the impact of the withdrawal of GSP has been downplayed by the government of India, and some sections are proposing retaliatory tariff barriers, however, it is said that India should always be open to discussions with the US, and also internal discussions should take place to have more clarity on the impact of the US withdrawal of GSP. And it is only through the discussions that India and US can have mutually beneficial trade relations. Now, after going through some of the points that we have discussed in this article, you should try and answer this question from your mains examination point of view. And with this, let us move on to the next article. Now, this article on page number 8 criticizes the Indian External Affairs Minister's participation at the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And in this article, the author has highlighted that India's recent outreach to the Organization of Islamic Cooperation is morally wrong, politically futile, and therefore the External Affairs Minister should have avoided the invitation as the guest of honor at this organization. So, this will form an important part of the General Studies paper 2 under the topic International Relations. Now, in this line, the author has highlighted various arguments as to why Indian External Affairs Minister should not have participated in the meeting of Organization of Islamic Cooperation. So, let us look at these arguments one by one. So, in this line, the first argument is that India's foundational philosophy is based on the concept of secularism, which treats every religion equally. However, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation is solely based on the shared religious identity, which deals with the Islamic religion. So, the basic philosophy of the Indian state and the basic philosophy of this organization are not mutually compatible. So, it is inappropriate for India to try to join such an organization which is based on the religious identity. Secondly, the Abu Dhabi Declaration of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation did not contain an acknowledgement of the address which was given by the India's External Affairs Minister. And this speech of External Affairs Minister of India focused mainly on combating terrorism. So, despite India raising the issue of terrorism at this platform, this organization failed to acknowledge the address of the India's External Affairs Minister with reference to combating terrorism. Further, the Abu Dhabi Declaration of OIC welcomed the positive initiative taken by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And this initiative was related to the handing over of the Indian pilot as a gesture of goodwill. And this gesture was appreciated by this organization because it was likely to de-escalate the tensions in the region. However, the Abu Dhabi Declaration had no reference for Pakistan to end its support to terrorism, which means that the OIC does not recognize Pakistan as a state which supports terrorism. And this point is opposed to the India's assertion which states that Pakistan is supporting terrorism in the state of Kashmir. Further, it has been argued that the Organization of Islamic Cooperation continues to meddle in the Kashmir issue. And at this OIC meeting, a resolution was adopted on Kashmir. And this resolution included the phrase Indian terrorism in Kashmir. And it is completely against the position of India on the Kashmir issue, which states that it is a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan, and no other organization should meddle in this issue. And further, the inclusion of phrase Indian terrorism in Kashmir in itself is wrong because the terrorism in the state of Kashmir has been perpetrated by the support from Pakistan. And further, this resolution on Kashmir shows that the OIC is unwilling to take into understanding India's stand with regard to the Kashmir issue. And it only supports the Pakistan stand or the Pakistan's point of view on the Kashmir issue. Further, the author has highlighted that India has had strong bilateral relations with almost all members of OIC. For example, India has had good relations with Saudi Arabia, with UAE, Indonesia, and other Central Asian countries. Therefore, it has been argued that OIC as an international organization provides India with no major advantage of economic or strategic relations. Now, as India has already had good relations with the members of the OIC, the presence of India at OIC does not provide any major economic or strategic advantage to India. And despite inviting India at the OIC, the various decisions that were taken, for example, the resolution on Kashmir and the Abu Dhabi Declaration, still prioritizes the Pakistan's point of view above India, which means that India is not being given due preference by the OIC. So all these points highlight that India should have avoided the participation at the OIC meeting. Now, regarding the basics of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, we have learned about it in the DNS of 24th February 2019. So, this Organization of Islamic Cooperation was established in 1969 at Morocco. Now, regarding the members of Organization of Islamic Cooperation, you should note that it is the second largest intergovernmental organization after the United Nations. And it has membership of around 57 countries which are spread over 4 continents. Now, regarding its membership, you should note that it has reserved its membership for only Muslim majority countries. And other countries with significant Muslim population are given observer status such as Russia. Further, regarding its purpose, you should note that it endeavors to safeguard and protect the interest of Muslim world. So the facts which are important for us from the preliminary examination point of view are that it was established in 1969 in Morocco. And secondly, you should note that it has 57 member countries, which makes it the second largest intergovernmental organization after the United Nations. And its membership is reserved for Muslim majority countries, and other countries which have significant Muslim population are granted the observer status. And simply the purpose is that it endeavors to safeguard and protect the interests of Muslim world. And after going through this discussion, you should try and answer this question from your mains examination point of view. And with this, let us move on to the next article. Now, this article on page number 7 is related to the smart fencing that has been installed along the border of Assam with the Bangladesh. Now, this border of Assam and Bangladesh is porous in nature because of the presence of various physiographic features like river, etc. And these rivers which are present at the border of Assam and Bangladesh keep changing their course. And during the times of flooding, the path that is followed by these rivers is changed. So that is why the smart fencing comes as a solution to the problem of border between Assam and Bangladesh. So now this is an important part under the General Studies paper 3 under the topic security. So in this article, let us understand what is meant by digital fencing and how these digital fencings make our borders more secure. So let us learn about some facts related to the digital fences. So these digital fences comprise of microwave communications, optical fiber cables and cameras. And they also include an intrusion detection device. And this system of digital fencing is called as bold QIT or the border electronically dominated QRT interception technique. And this bold QIT was established under the Comprehensive Integrated Border Management System or the CIBMS. Now, how does this digital fencing help us in protecting our borders? So it improves the capability of the border security forces in detecting and controlling the cross-border crimes like illegal infiltration, smuggling of contraband goods, human trafficking and cross-border terrorism, etc. So in short, these digital fences strengthen the capability of BSFs over and above what is possible by the presence of human beings. And they keep a check on any minor intrusion or activity that happens along these digital fences. So that is why they are electronically equipped and are more effective as compared to the human surveillance on the borders. Now, the Comprehensive Integrated Border Management System or the CIBMS includes various state of the art surveillance technologies. And these include the thermal imagers, infrared and laser based intruder alarms, aerostats for aerial surveillance, unattended ground sensors that can help detect the intrusion by the terrorist organizations. Also, it uses radars and sonar systems to detect the riverine borders. And finally, it has the fiber optic sensors and a command and control system that shall receive the data from the surveillance devices in the real time. So this means that these borders are electronically equipped and they keep an eye on the borders through the aerial surveillance as well, and also use the important scientific techniques for any kind of intrusion that takes place along the borders. And you should note that this CIBMS is also being installed along the Indo-Pakistan border and also Indo-Bangladesh border as we have seen in this article. So this will enhance the capabilities of our border security forces. Now this digital fencing project has been initiated in 3 stages and the first stage is only on a pilot basis. However, the stage 2 and 3 will primarily target difficult areas which are not possible for the human beings to keep surveillance on. So these difficult terrains or these difficult areas will be kept under surveillance with these digital fences. And these areas include the riverine or delta and the estuary areas. For example, such areas are found along the Bay of Bengal where the river Ganga drains. And these kind of borders are especially found along India and Bangladesh. Further, waterlogged and swampy areas, creek areas, for example, along Gulf of Kutch where India has border with Pakistan. Also, plain areas which are vulnerable to fogs, thickly populated areas on border, hilly areas, tropical jungle areas, and the deserts. So this means that this kind of digital fencing will take care of all the difficult terrains where the human surveillance is not possible. Now, although a question directly based on the digital fencing is highly unlikely in the exam, you can use this point in answering questions related to the border security or the border management in India. And with this, let us move on to the next article. This article on page number 7 reads that 15 of the top 20 most polluted cities in the world are located in India. And this is based on an analysis of the air quality in several cities around the world. So, this forms a part of the General Studies paper 3 under the topic Environment and Ecology. So, in this article, we will try to understand the key observations of this study and where do the Indian cities stand vis a vis the other polluted cities of the world. Now, highlighting the gravity of pollution in Indian cities and various other countries of the world, Gurgaon in Haryana topped the list with an average annual particulate matter quality of 135 grams per meter cube. So, this means that the particulate matter pollution was the main problem in Gurugram in Haryana and it has topped the list regarding the particulate matter pollution. Regarding the ranking of the countries, Bangladesh was the most polluted country, which was followed by Pakistan and India. And 64% of the cities which were analyzed by these rankings exceeded the World Health Organization's annual exposure guideline regarding the fine particulate matter, and which are also known as the PM 2.5 particulate matters. And regarding the regional distribution of the polluted cities around the world, the report states that almost all the cities of the Middle East and Africa exceeded the WHO guidelines regarding the pollution. Also, 99% of the cities in South Asia were beyond the WHO guidelines. And similarly, 95% of the cities from Southeast Asia and 89% of the cities from East Asia breached the WHO guidelines regarding fine particulate matter pollution. So, these are some observations of these rankings, and these can be used in introducing any question related to the gravity of pollution in the cities. So, as you can see in this, the Gurugram topped the top 20 polluted cities around the world. And in these top 20 polluted cities of the world, 15 cities are from India. So, this highlights the gravity of pollution in Indian cities. So, this study was conducted by the IQ Air Group, which manufactures the air monitoring sensors as well as purifiers, and the environmentalist group Greenpeace. Now, further, you should note that an estimated 4.2 million premature deaths are globally linked to the ambient outdoor air pollution. And these deaths have mainly been due to the pollution related diseases, for example, heart diseases, strokes, chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, lung cancer, etc. And the major pollutants with the strongest evidence for public health concern include the PM 2.5 and PM 10, the ozone, nitrogen dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. So that is why the pollution in Indian cities is a cause of concern for the authorities as well as the citizens of India. Now, after this, let us look at the most important pollutant, that is the particulate matter. And also, what are the important sources of this particulate matter pollution? So, regarding the PM or the particulate matters, you should note that these are respirable particles, which means that these particles can be inhaled during the respiration process. And these particulate matters, which are respirable, are composed of sulfates, nitrates, ammonia, sodium chloride, mineral dust, and water. Further, these particulate matters have diameter less than 10 microns, and those with diameter less than 2.5 microns are known as PM 2.5. And these particulate matters, that is PM 2.5 and PM 10, pose the greatest risk to the health of human beings. And this is because they are capable of penetrating the lungs and entering the bloodstreams. Now, regarding the important sources of the particulate matter, you should note that these include combustion engines, which includes both diesel as well as petrol engines. Further, they include the solid fuel, for example, coal, lignite, biomass combustion, etc. And also important industrial activities like building, mining, manufacturing, etc. And all these are known to be the sources of PM 2.5 pollution. So some of the points that we have discussed in this article can be used in answering questions related to the pollution problem in India. And with this, let us move on to the next article. Now, in this article on page number 7, the Supreme Court has asked the petitioners to clarify the stand on green crackers. And this has particularly been related to the usage of barium nitrate and potassium nitrate in the green crackers. And in this, it has been argued that these two chemicals which are being used in the green crackers are not environment friendly. Now, in this article, let us try to understand what are the main pollutants that are emitted by the firecrackers. So, this will form a part of the General Studies paper 3 under the topic environment. Now, regarding the firecracker pollution, you should note that the firecrackers are made up of 4 components, and these include the oxidizers, fuels, coloring agents, and the binders. Now, regarding the oxidizers, you should note that the chemical which is used in these oxidizers is the perchlorate salt. And this oxidizing agent provides the oxygen which is required for the explosion of the firecracker. Further, the fuel which is used in firecrackers is generally composed of charcoal. And due to the burning of this charcoal, various air pollutants like the sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, and particulate matter is emitted. Regarding the coloring agents, you should note that these include coloring agents like aluminium compounds. Now, an important coloring agent is the barium nitrate, and it produces green color. And also, the copper produces the blue light. So, these are few compounds which are used as coloring agents in the firecrackers. And all these components are major sources of pollution in the air. Further, the other products that are used in the firecrackers include the antimony sulfide, and this produces toxic smoke and is also a carcinogen. Further, the barium nitrate which is used in firecrackers can cause irritated respiratory tract. And this barium nitrate is also known for its radioactivity. Further, you should note that the barium chromate which is used in firecrackers was also found to be toxic to the living cells and genes in the human lung cells. Further, the Central Pollution Control Board lists out various compounds which are released by the firecrackers. And these include the lead dioxides, lead nitrates, and chlorides, and these are known to be poisonous. Further, mercury is also released from the firecrackers and it is known for bioaccumulation. Now, an important component that is the potassium nitrate is a carcinogen. And you should note that the potassium nitrate is also being used for the creation of green crackers. That is why a petition has been filed in the Supreme Court against the green crackers. Also, the barium nitrate is being used for green crackers, and that also has harmful effect on the health of human beings. That is why the presence of both these chemicals in the green crackers as well is being opposed in a petition which has been filed in the Supreme Court. Further, the ozone gas is also emitted by the burning of firecrackers, and this causes asthma related symptoms. Further, strontium compounds and nitric oxide and nitrogen dioxide are also released by the burning of firecrackers, and these are also highly toxic if they are inhaled by the human beings. So in this article, as you have learned, that there are various chemicals which are used in the production of firecrackers, and also there are various emissions under the firecracker burning, and all these have adverse impact on the human health. Also, we have learned that the green crackers have two chemicals which are important, for example the barium nitrate and the potassium nitrate, and both of these are known to be carcinogenic, and that is why these are being opposed in the Supreme Court in a petition. Now, this article on page number 11 deals with the inauguration of the pension scheme for workers which has been launched by the Prime Minister. And this scheme is known as the Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandhan. And this deals with the pension scheme for the unorganized workers. Now, this scheme was discussed in the DNS of 2nd February 2019, under which the budget was discussed. So, you should go through this video to understand the details of this scheme. Now, after going through today's discussion, you should try and answer these questions from your preliminary examination point of view. And the answer for these questions will be displayed after 5 seconds. Now, the first question reads, which of the following is correct about the most favored nation status of the WTO? Now, the first statement reads, the countries can impose discriminatory tariffs on other member nations. Now, this is not a clause under the MFN, under the WTO. The second statement reads that the countries cannot provide preferential treatment to the member countries. Now, this is an incorrect statement because the developed countries can provide preferential treatment to the developing countries. The third statement reads that WTO allows members to give special and differential treatment to the developing countries. Now, this is a correct statement, and this is an example of the generalized system of preferences. The second question reads, which of the following pollutants pose threat to the human health? The first one is the ozone. The second is PM 2.5. And the third one is carbon dioxide. So here you should note that ozone and PM 2.5 are the pollutants which pose a threat to the human health. And carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. So that is why the answer is A, that is 1 and 2 only. Further, you should try these two questions from your preliminary examination point of view, and the answer for these questions will be displayed after 5 seconds. Now the first question reads, India shares the longest international border with which of the following countries? So here you should note that India shares the longest international border with Bangladesh. Now this question reads, which of the following chemicals are used as coloring agents in the firecrackers? And the options given are the aluminium, barium nitrate and copper. Now as we have learned in today's article, all the three are used as coloring agents in the firecrackers. In this you should note that the aluminium is used to produce the white light, barium nitrate is used to produce the green light, and the copper is used to produce blue light. So the correct answer that comes out is D, that is 1, 2 and 3. With this we have come to the end of today's discussion. Now let us move on to the question for the day.